Hi everyone, welcome to our 30-minute lunchtime boost. We hope these are a bright spot in your day with experts every Wednesday and Friday through May and now through June. I'm your host, Jen Maseda, the CEO of She's Local, the organization that brings you relevant, relatable, and local content from women. And now live digital engagement opportunities for local women to connect, inspire, and move along whatever path they choose. Now, COVID-19 has changed almost every aspect of our lives, and on today's show, we are talking about how this pandemic has highly affected our education system. And with us today is Renee DuChainey-Farkes. Renee is currently the head of school at the Woodward School for Girls in Quincy, serving girls from age 6 to 12, and has been leading schools for over 22 years. And also joining us today is Dr. Anna Nolin. Dr. Nolin is the superintendent in the Natick Public Schools systems, where she's worked in various leadership capacities for the last 17 years. Lots of expertise, and we are so grateful that the two of you are with us today, giving us the perspective from the public sector as well as from private institutions. So thank you both.
Great to be here.
So this lockdown has really accelerated our jump into digital technology. And as experts in the field, we really want to know from you, we want to hear from you, what's the current state of our education system and what's the impact on our students? Renee, we're going to start with you. How has this quarantine impacted students that you are seeing in the private institutions?
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, it's impacted us in just amazing and crazy ways. It was pretty difficult mentally to adjust to this mindset of learning from home. But at our experience here at Woodward, it was such a smooth transition. We're still in shock, and today is the last day of school, and we're saying, wow, we did it. But we had spent a fair amount of time for the first couple of weeks talking to the students about what if we had to continue learning from home. So I think that we framed it with the girls on the last day that we weren't closing school, that we were going to be learning from home, and we were just shifting the classroom to your home. And I think that made a big difference for them. And we also gave them some really clear expectations of getting up at your regular time in the morning, put on your school clothes, eat your breakfast before you come to your Zoom classroom, be there 5 minutes early, have your headphones, have your papers in order around you. So I think our parents told us that the structure that we had provided for the girls was just amazing and allowed them to flawlessly flow into learning from home.
Yeah, I keep thinking of my own kids who are in the Natick Public School system, and getting them prepared is probably the most challenging part of my day. Anna, let's hear from you. Please, Dr. Nolin, share with us what's happening within public school systems and what's the impact on students right now? Oh, you're muted.
I can speak for systems like Natick in that I want you to know that we see ourselves and have tried to be the tip of the spear, if you will, of transitioning to digital and remote learning before this, but certainly during this crisis, since we were first to close in the region, we've been out in front on this. That said, it still had a difficult effect on the students, no matter how prepared we were for it. I know that my superintendent colleagues across the state would want me to say to you that not everyone has been successfully transitioned to remote learning in the ways that, say, the Woodward School or Natick Public Schools would be able to. Any equity issue that existed but pre-closure has been exacerbated by being in closure, whether that's language issues, poverty issues, access issues, parenting issues, abuse issues. Those things have really come to the surface. I do see those as opportunities, though. So I certainly when we talk about how will learning change after this, I have some thoughts about that. But mostly we contended with a lot of grieving from parents and grieving from kids, grieving from teachers, a lot of uncertainty, but a lot of opportunities for our staff and families to model resiliency for kids and to say, just as Renee said, here's how we adapt to very uncertain times, and here's how you can, you know, put some structure and some limits in your day. All of us have discussed like sort of COVID and Zoom or Google Meet brain, right? That like burnt out feeling that everyone feels from trying to transition a social dynamic life into an online. Any SEL issues before, so social and we to address things by live chatting, counseling into families' homes. I would say that an upside for many of our students with school phobia and anxiety, this transition to remote learning has been life-changing and has been uplifting for them and their families. And I've received so many positive emails from families who struggled to get their children to go to school. So certainly we are tucking all these nuggets away for how can we improve school when we get back to life. But those are really the big parts for students. You know, when you take away the things that typically define school life and success in the school life, like grades or regular tests or things like that, students really have to find in themselves what it is that motivates them. And that's like hard to do in a short period of time like this. So it's a huge opportunity, but that's been a big struggle.
Yeah, you talk about those nuggets that you're you know, hoarding them away for future reference. On that line, what would both of you take with you going forward if we do ever leave this quarantine? And what would you absolutely not continue?
Oh my God, there's a bunch of my teachers here. They probably have a lot more to say on this than me. I guess I just want to say again that there is no substitute for live school. There is no substitute between the beautiful thing for the beautiful thing that happens between teachers and children and learning in that social context. So I'm never going to be an advocate of complete online and remote learning. So I guess I'll just say that up front. We've learned a lot about delivering teletherapy and telefitness and how to prioritize what makes a good in-person meeting versus something we can sort of co-opt out to the blended learning, you know, learning management system. I think our teachers have honed their way to prioritize what good lessons look like. So, you know, I think that's good. Anytime that we're looking at what are all the ways I can creatively deliver this, teaching's only going to be stronger after this time period. And teachers have just amazed us every day. So those are the big ones. It's been professional development on steroids for us in terms of how we design lessons. But certainly my teachers who are here would have some thoughts too, I'm sure. But Renee, I know you.
Sure, yeah, I agree with you. I think that we can't lose sight of the human connectivity. And I think in the beginning, we were all so worried about were there enough devices? Did we know how to do this? How do we zoom into these meetings? How do we make it easy? And that there is no substitute. You know, schools are relational places, and it's all about that human interaction between the teacher and the child and the teacher, right? So, and that also brings me to thinking about parents. I have a lot of background in the importance of partnering with parents and families. And I think that as I look back a little bit and say, well, what did we maybe not pay quite as much attention, and what would I do in the future, because we don't know what September looks like. And I think all schools really have to think about more about the parents, because they're the ones who were kind of had their homes turned upside down in a spin of a minute, right? And that they were being put into roles. And I've talked to parents, not necessarily at Woodward, but other parents, that they were put into roles of homeschooling, where, you know, every parent, it's such a challenging position, and every parent wants to do a good job at parenting. And every parent is worried that they're not the best parent they can be. And I think from my interviews of other parents, I've learned that they felt like they were, you know, didn't know what to do, and that we need to be more helpful to the parents of what to expect if we continue in September. And again, at Woodward, we happen to have put together a pretty clear schedule, and we're able to share that out early. But I've recently written an article about how to help parents in September, because I do think there will be, at the most, a hybrid in September. I'm not quite sure we're going to see each other full time. I just had recognition day and said goodbye to the students, said, I expect to see you at Hancock Street on September 7th. I hope. But if not, we've got to have a hybrid where maybe they'll be coming in some days or part of the day. There'll be staggered schedules. So at that time, I want to spend more time on how do we help parents be ready for this?
Yeah, and we don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not asking either of you to predict the future, but Anna, what are you preparing for September?
I just want to say one thing, and maybe we can pick it up later here. I do think that women parents are unduly affected by this. And that is one of my worries, which does relate to how we're planning for the fall.
Yeah.
I do follow our Natick social media pretty carefully. And there was we were meeting with our local reps, Senate and House of Reps. And, there was this big push, like this one mom had this amazing dialogue she put out on Facebook between her and her husband, where her husband was like, yay, my office is opening. I can go back to work. And she's like, so who's going to homeschool the kids? I have to go back to work too. And so one of the things that scares me about, what Renee said is my guess, what we're preparing for. A/B schedules, 50% in school, 50% online, at least for some period, and then toggling back and forth into closure as local health data demands that we must. That's my guess, that no one's given us that direct guidance, but that's what we're trying to plan for, which is a mess. And it's a mess that's going to be borne by moms, because who's going to be home with kids, right? Let's just pretend I'm a woman teacher, these ladies right here. I teach on the live this week, but my own kids are not slated to go to school till the next week. What am I going to do with my third grader? Right? So I'm petrified about that. Like, women will not get back to work, right? And so the economy is not going to totally recover. I'm hopeful that someone has thought through this before they start issuing the statewide guidance, but I've learned to not expect the best.
Right. But there are some countries in Europe who've gone back. And while at Woodward, we've got probably 4 plans. One would be, what if we're totally online and we're going to adjust to what we learned from these 100 days. And then there's one where you're totally back. So that will be like easy and great. And the hybrid, you're right, Anna, will be very difficult, because what days will which students come? What about the family that has more than one child and 2 of the kids go on 2 days and 2 go the other days? We have morning and afternoon schedules where we'd have the whole school in, half the school in the morning, half the school in the afternoon, no lunch periods. When I look around the building, I say we're going to have hand sanitizers everywhere, right? We're going to have Clorox wipies everywhere. We're going to be wearing masks. Our classrooms will be devoid of furniture except for the single desks that students are sitting on 6 feet apart. So there's a lot of scary things, but the research I've been following with the schools in Europe is that they've kind of slowly gone back to normal. And they say, if anything, the students are terrific. They keep the distance. My school is full of girls hugging each other, so I have no idea how they're going to keep the distance. And that, we're all going to be so grateful to just be around each other, because that loss of human connection has probably been the hardest for us at Woodward of all the things. The technology and all we thought was going to be the biggest challenge, and that was the smallest challenge. And the fact of not being together with each other has just been we just finished recognition day and I don't have anyone to hug, and there's no students. And I did it in the building because I wanted to be here projecting out to them. And I'm sitting here saying, I'm so lonely right now. Like, there's not a person in this building but me.
I'm sure they appreciate that you were there. Yeah. So both of you mentioned resilience and parent resources and the importance of parents having those resources, especially moms, especially teacher moms. What can you share with us that we can easily digest that could really support us going forward?
You mean by way of supporting learning or just getting through closure?
Well, I don't think there are enough resources for that.
You know, I guess
I mean, you mentioned parents and also resilience. So resilience for students, what are some resources for that? I do believe that they are innately at whatever age they are, have a level of resilience anyway. But how can we encourage that, and how can we encourage parents with resources so they too can adopt resilience and model that for their young person?
Well, one of the worries I think we have is that, you know, my school just closed, and maybe Anna, yours is closing soon. What does the summer look like? You know, so we've come off of this, we have an end of the year, and I'm most worried about Monday morning when my girls wake up and they don't have the plan to say, even if they say, I don't really want to go on Zoom, but they have to, right? Monday, they have nothing to do. And I was talking with a therapist last night who I'm going to have come in and talk to the parents as a resource. And we're going to call Navigating the Summer with my daughter. And she talked a lot about anxiety increasing, possibly depression, boredom. And she also talked about that we should find a way for parents to learn more about the electronics and internet safety, and also the apps, because this is what they're going to be working on all summer is social media. They can't go out. So what are they going to be doing? They're going to be in their rooms with the door closed, and we don't know what they're doing. So we're going to have to really become educated. And at Woodward, we're putting together some programs called Summer Online at Woodward, and they're primarily enrichment classes. There'll be some fun ones as well. But I was just meeting this morning with our tech person, and I said that maybe you need to put together a session for parents, because we have to support our parents. I mean, as Anna said, and particularly moms, but this is stressful. And now they've got another 60, 90 days of summer that I guess we'll be able to go to the beach a little bit, but what's going to happen in the household?
I guess I want to say first, just in general around all of this and the transition and back and forth and how good we are at homeschooling, that every single mom and dad has to just know they're doing the best they can and forgive themselves for all the things they think they're not doing well. But welcome to the little bit of baggage that every teacher carries. Like every day we worry that it's malpractice that we have committed in some way. Like, did we do enough? Did we nail it? Did we reach them? Right? That's the teacher part. But I just want people to forgive themselves. I grew up in northern New Hampshire in a town of 700. So quarantine feels nostalgic to me a little bit, because there were no stores, nothing was ever open, and we had never had anything to do. And I guess I want to say the best thing that a family can do is to frame this as an opportunity. And to that end, I don't know if any of you have read the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which is on there. She has this whole section on like what happened when she gave her kid a device, right? So I sent that to my children. This quote where she says, you know, right after itchy boredom, if you don't put a device in a kid's hands, is self-discovery. And she said, I find myself worrying most that we hand our children the devices, we steal boredom from them. And as a result, we raise a generation of writers who will never write, artists who will never doodle, chefs who will never make a mess in the kitchen, athletes who will never just kick a ball against the wall, musicians who never pick up the guitar and start strumming. And I wrote to my kids and said, look, I'm a grown-up and I yearn for the time when you could do some self-exploration. And so I would say to moms, find something that your kid probably won't have time to do when they're an adult, you know, and there's plenty of those things. Maybe it's like, you know, read all of Dostoevsky. I don't know. Maybe it's like read every Dr. Seuss. Maybe it's pick up the guitar, you know, learn to make your own nail polish. I don't know what it is, but those are things that I just don't have time to do anymore, you know, and, you know, like I said to my daughter, you've always wanted to learn to make jewelry. What is stopping you from doing that right now? You have all this time, and work it like a job, you know? So I think just creating those opportunities every day is an opportunity for them to try something new. Now that's huge pressure on parents too. And it's not all, you know, kumbaya excitement when you're doing that. But I do think, you know, saying get outside and get some exercise, find that hobby that you wanted to take on. And I'm sorry, they need to be reading and they have time to do it. Like,
right.
Get on those great books that you always think you're going to have time to read. My son finally read Invisible Man recently, and he's like, Mom, I haven't had time to read. He's a junior in high school. He's like, I haven't had time to read what I want to read in years. I was like, great, that's good. My daughter, different story. She won't pick up a book unless I force her. But
well, I think we have seen more appreciation of family time. We've been working with our families, with the schedule of each household, and I have seen that there's more participation now in making lunch together, where one child in the family is in charge of Monday, one in Tuesday, and that they do their family walks in the afternoon, which I think is great. We've seen a lot of our 9th, 10th, and 11th grade girls on the weekends. Families are going for rides now in the car, right? And it's like, where else am I going to take a ride? Now they're looking at colleges, just walking on campuses, just as an early experience. But that whole family dynamic is one of the, I think, silver linings coming out of this. Although there is a lot of stress with, employment layoffs and financial woes and all, but being able to spend that time taking bike rides together. I am envious. I don't have a dog because everybody talks about taking their dog for a walk. And I know the day is so busy that if I had a dog, it would make me get off Zoom for a half hour twice a day, right? So I agree with Anna that, there are opportunities, and we have to get a different mindset now with school finish because it's stressful and we're exhausted. And somehow we need to take a week off and sleep and then say, starting next week, let's make a new plan and do it together with the family. What do you want to do? What are things that we haven't done before? Making jewelry, cleaning a closet, organizing something, doing a community service project. Just to get our energies back up and our enthusiasm and our happiness,
Yeah, that's perfect. I find the opportunities. Absolutely. We're going to open it up to questions now. Yeah, you guys had me crying there for a minute. I was tearing up. That was beautiful. For questions, drop down to the bottom of your Zoom and you'll see a reactions button. Give us a thumbs up, give us a clappy hands, and we'll come right to you. I will unmute you, and if you are typing, you're just welcome to type in the chat, and I'm happy to read your question too. So Stephanie, I'm going to come to you. I saw you first, and then I know there's a question in the chat. So I'm going to unmute you, and then yes.
Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you both for your time today on the panel. I have to say I am involved with Woodward, and I am very happy to hear about your ideas of, how the lessons we're learning from our current situation in the world. And I'm just wondering as well, what do you think about some ways in which the interactions have been positive for filling the void and some of this loss of community that we feel, from not having those in-person connections? Like, what are some of the benefits we've had from that, from being involved socially and seeing each other?
I'd be happy to take that answer, Jen. One of the things we did was put together virtual teas on a weekly basis with the parents. I did it with the students also, but I did it religiously with the parents. There were 3 a week, and we just had the last one last night, and they were begging me about, what are you going to do for the summer? I can't be disconnected. So we did keep that community sense going, and I feel like in our school, I know those parents more than I would have known them without the COVID, which, it feels a little bit funny to say. But in the beginning, we were together scared on the screen together saying, what's this about? And I think we said, we're all in this together so much, but then we learned to be intimate with each other, show our vulnerability. I'm worried. What are you doing about this? What do you do when your daughter says this? And now it's a very close group, and I will be keeping one tea going a week throughout the summer, because I do think we're going to be hearing from the state and CDC, and people are going to say, what does that mean for Woodward? So I want to at least have a place that people know they can drop into on Wednesday morning, and I can ask Renee. It will also limit my number of emails that I'll be getting. And I may put an evening one in. And we're still thinking about what could we put in on a weekly basis for the girls, that maybe there'll be an open chat led by a teacher that they can just come in and chat. Because I want to keep that connection to the school, because I think that's really important. I know a lot about ambiguous loss, and I really worry about our kids having ended the school year without having that, you know, concrete feeling of togetherness. And we just did our recognition day this morning, and I feel disconnected. I couldn't hug anybody, you know. And so what do the children feel? That emotion is really important for them. So we're going to keep that going.
Thank you, Renee. In the chat, Meredith Barnes-Cook put some resources there. Thank you, Meredith. Some friends have created collaboration and co-ownership plans using Maven boards, and Trello is a free app and has a template. Those are great resources. Anna, do you want to just share some resources for summertime and for supporting through?
I guess I also want to echo what Renee said, in that I feel more connected to the parent community than ever. Like, I had this very funny meeting with, like, you know, I have all these community-wide meetings to explain remote learning and do all this. And now, because all of our meetings for civic life, so school committee, board of selectmen, et cetera, are all actually more accessible to people and more accessible to moms, right? Because the biggest issue was people couldn't come to school committee because of childcare issues. This was always something that really bugged me, right? It was always like older men in the 70-something range are who lead town meeting and who lead school committees and finance committees. Well, more women are attending our meeting than ever, and more moms are attending. So that's great. And I've had more time. One dad's like, I wouldn't have known you if you fell on me until now, but now I see you every week and it's great. And I was like, great. So there's some real benefits there. We are lucky / not lucky that I have to do school committee like every 2 days. So, you know, unlike Renee, like, I have to see people as a matter of course. So that will continue all through the summer because the budget situation is such that it will be. But I imagine that we will start to open up different levels of access to campuses starting at the end of July. So I think we're going to have there's been some rolling guidance from the commissioner just last night about trying to shoot for end of July special education implementation. So we'll be working on that. By August, we've set an August graduation date for our seniors, and we are going to have that ceremony if we have to stand 6 feet apart from each other and do that. So far, we can meet all the Board of Health criteria as they stand today with our graduation proposal. We have a community read going on a book called Wish Tree, which is about a community that suffers a trauma related to race, but there's a wish tree in the community, and it has seen 200 years of trauma in that community, and it becomes a source of inspiration. So as part of our graduation, we planted a wish tree for the seniors so that they are the wish tree class and not the pandemic class.
That's right.
And we'll be sharing wishes all summer and coming together to share those wishes with the graduates. So we're hoping that theme and that community read with the book chats will keep us connected this summer.
We've got a couple more minutes. Anyone else have a pressing question that they wanted to ask? I know that Dr. Nolin and Renee are available and accessible because that's what She's Local is all about. So we appreciate them being here. Deb, I think you had a question. I'm going to unmute you. You're going to have to unmute yourself though, love.
Okay. Thank you. I was wondering if there's anything that community members can do to support the kids in terms of, I mean, you said jewelry making, and I'm thinking, how could I have one kid at a time come into the studio for an hour and do something? Or are there families that don't have access to the internet where somebody could sponsor that cost for 6 months?
Those are wonderful ideas. I think what I've seen a little bit of happening is like a classroom in a box. There's something called, there's a painting group that people come together and paint, but they send you a box with all the things you need. And so you might be able to do a jewelry making where maybe you could come onto our Woodward online platform and we can host you. But you could, you know, give a list of not the ingredients, but what you need. And then the children come into the room and you can all say, well, now we take the string and we're going to do this or whatever it is, and display that in front of them. We're doing some of those cooking exercises at Woodward, and the girls are getting all the same ingredients and they're cooking together in their own homes, and they have their Zoom on and they're having conversations, or they've cooked ahead of time and then they come and share on Zoom their favorite cookie and why and what the recipe was. So it's fun things, because I think now we want them to have fun. You know, we want to be laughing and fooling around and just kind of normalize a little bit. And the summer is the time to do that. So I think there's some great ideas there.
That's great.
Deb, Deb's from my community. Deb, I know that there, you know, I would never want to put your health at risk. That's the only, that's the only hesitation that I have, is that while I want to open everything up and have one-on-ones for you, I would, you know, I know that you would, I would send my kid to make jewelry with you. However, they're germy folks. And, you know, I think we want to eliminate as much cross-contamination as possible. That's what's going to get in the way of those moments. That said, we are looking at these sort of art supplies in a package, supplies in a package. If we go back into closure, not every family has, you know, jewelry making materials, or not every family has even watercolor set or some clay or the, you know, so we are trying to bridge those gaps. We've asked Natick Education Foundation to help us with that, but I'm just saying it to whoever and whenever. That's the kind of thing that helps us to have a more equitable experience in remote learning.
Yeah.
That's terrific. All right, we are going to wrap for this session. This was our 15th episode, so if you've missed one, be sure to go to our She's Local YouTube channel, and you can take a look at all the experts that we've had through March, April, May, and now in June. We're going to be here all June, Wednesdays and Fridays. Come back and join us. Thank you so much, Dr. Nolin. Thank you so much, Renee. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
All right. Have an amazing day. Thanks, everybody. We'll